Your baby's brain is 75% unfinished at birth. And the one thing modern parenting told you to stop doing is the exact thing that completes it. Here's what nobody in the parenting aisle at Target is going to tell you. A newborn human brain arrives into this world at roughly 25% of its eventual adult size. Think about that for a moment. Compare that to a baby horse that's trotting around within an hour of birth, or a baby dolphin that's swimming almost immediately. Human infants can't even support their own head. That's not a design flaw. It's actually a brilliant evolutionary compromise. If our babies were born with fully developed brains, the human skull simply wouldn't fit through the birth canal. So nature made a deal. Babies are born early, neurologically speaking, and the remaining development happens out here in the world. Scientists have actually given this period a name. They call it the fourth trimester. And during those first few months outside the womb, your baby's nervous system is doing something extraordinary. It's not yet capable of regulating itself. It literally depends on an external source to organize its own internal rhythms. That external source is you. Your heartbeat, your breathing pattern, your body heat, even your scent are all active inputs that your baby's developing brain is using to calibrate its own systems. These aren't just comforting extras. They're biological necessities. Researcher Dr. Tiffany Field studied what happens to babies physiologically during separation from caregivers during sleep. And her findings were striking. Stress hormone levels in separated infants began climbing within minutes, not hours, minutes. Another study published in Early Human Development around 2012 compared infants sleeping in isolation versus those sleeping in close proximity to a parent. The babies sleeping alone showed significantly elevated internal arousal states, meaning their bodies were in a mild stress response even when they appeared outwardly calm. Let that land for a second. Those babies weren't crying. They weren't showing any visible signs of distress. From across the room, they looked completely fine. But inside, their systems were quietly sounding an alarm. This matters enormously because sleep isn't passive for a baby. Sleep is when the brain actively constructs itself. Growth hormones surge, neural pathways consolidate. Every one of those processes is enhanced in a calm, low-stress biological environment. Why does separation trigger stress at all? Because for most of human evolutionary history, losing physical contact with a caregiver during sleep genuinely was dangerous for an infant. Evolution responded by building a proximity-seeking alarm directly into the infant nervous system. Attachment pioneer John Bowlby identified this mechanism in the 1950s. The system doesn't know you live in a safe, climate-controlled home. It only registers one variable. Caregiver nearby equals safety. Caregiver absent equals threat. And the stress response fires regardless. Here's where it gets genuinely fascinating and honestly beautiful. Scientists discovered something called physiological synchrony. When a baby sleeps close to their caregiver, particularly the mother, their bodies begin to biologically mirror each other. Breathing rates align. Heart rate patterns begin to echo one another. Even sleep cycles start coordinating. Researchers found this synchrony measurable down to incredibly precise intervals. What this means practically is that your mature, regulated nervous system is literally lending itself to your baby's developing one overnight. You become a biological anchor while they sleep. Now, we do need to talk about the co-sleeping question, because this is where things get complicated and safety absolutely matters. There's a critical distinction between bed sharing, where your baby shares your actual sleep surface, and room sharing, where your baby has their own safe sleep space within your room. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends room sharing for at least the first 6 months, while cautioning against bed sharing, particularly when soft bedding, alcohol, or significant parental exhaustion are involved. Those concerns are legitimate and worth taking seriously. I've linked a resource in the description that I think you'll find really helpful. But proximity itself is a separate conversation entirely. Dr. James McKenna, who spent decades researching mother and infant sleep at the University of Notre Dame, found that safely co-sleeping breastfeeding mothers and their babies showed remarkable physiological coordination and synchronized sleep architecture. The question isn't whether closeness benefits your baby. The science is clear that it does. The question is how to achieve that closeness safely. A bedside bassinet or sidecar sleeper positioned right next to your bed captures most of those proximity benefits while keeping sleep surfaces separate. And here's something surprising that many parents overlook. Your scent alone has measurable effects on infant stress hormones. Studies have found that babies sleeping near clothing that carries their mother's smell show lower cortisol levels, and longer stretches of undisturbed sleep. Something that simple, something that free. And about those silent babies who never cry when they're alone, researchers pay particular attention to them. Because a baby who stops protesting separation isn't necessarily a baby who has found peace with it. Sometimes that silence signals something different entirely. The infant brain has registered that signaling doesn't produce results, and it shifts into a kind of internal withdrawal mode. Stress hormones remain elevated. The alarm is still going off internally, but the visible protest disappears. That is not independence. That's a very different thing. Here's the bigger picture. The way your baby experiences sleep during these early months isn't just about rest. It's one of the primary arenas where attachment forms, where trust becomes coded into neural architecture, where your child begins to learn whether the world is fundamentally safe or fundamentally uncertain. Consistent proximity during sleep delivers a message at the most primal biological level. Someone is here, you are not alone. Research consistently links that early message with stronger emotional regulation, better resilience, and more secure attachment patterns that follow children well into their later years. So, the next time it's 3 a.m. and you're sitting in the dark with your baby breathing softly against your chest, exhausted, and maybe wondering what any of this is for, remember this: you aren't just surviving a difficult night. You are actively building your child's nervous system. You are teaching their brain how to feel safe. You are constructing the emotional foundation they will stand on for the rest of their lives. That is not a small thing. That is everything. If this gave you a new way to think about what your baby actually needs at night, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We cover the real science behind your baby's developing mind every single week.